The only thing my husband Graham asked of me when he said goodbye was, "Never go to Hawthorne Hollow, Mara. Promise me." His hand trembled in mine, the last sparks of strength slipping through his fingers as his eyes, once so full of conviction, pleaded with me. I promised him. And I meant it. For years I carried that vow like a stone in my chest, heavy but unshakable. But curiosity, like water against rock, wears you down slowly. A few years after Graham's death, my promise cracked. What I found beyond that iron gate changed everything I thought I knew about the man I loved. Only then did I truly understand why he had been so desperate to keep me away. 17 years of marriage ended in a sterile hospital room, the rhythmic beeping of machines swallowed by the silence that followed his final breath. At 58, I was suddenly a widow, left with a daughter in college and an emptiness that stretched further than the horizon. Life blurred, weeks folding into months, until one Tuesday a call shattered the monotony. "Mrs. Ellison, I need you to come in," said Mr. Kessler, Graham's attorney. His voice carried a weight that made me shiver. 2 months had passed since the funeral, yet the wound still felt raw. I sat across from him at his polished mahogany desk, the smell of old paper and leather books pressing in on me. Without preamble, he slid a small wooden box and a sealed envelope toward me. "Your husband left instructions. These were to reach you only after his passing." My fingers trembled as I opened the box. Inside lay an antique iron key, heavy, its bow shaped like a twisted vine. The envelope bore my name in Graham's unmistakable handwriting, steady, deliberate, the same hand that had signed birthday cards and grocery lists. "What is this key for?" I asked. Mr. Kessler adjusted his glasses. "Hawthorne Hollow. A property your husband purchased 4 years ago. He insisted you only be told of it after his death." The room spun. Graham had never mentioned owning anything beyond our modest home. Why buy a retreat and make me promise never to go? "It's complicated," Kessler continued. "The estate once belonged to his family. He reacquired it after decades, though it had changed hands. In the last 2 years, it's become extremely valuable. Pinnacle Lodges is developing a luxury resort nearby. They've made several multi-million-dollar offers for Hawthorne Hollow. He turned them all down." I pressed the letter to my chest before daring to open it. Graham's voice seemed to rise from the page as I read. "My dearest Mara, if you're holding this, it means I've gone sooner than I wished. Forgive me for secrets kept. Hawthorne Hollow is yours now. I rebuilt that place of pain into something beautiful. For you. I know I once begged you never to go. Today I release you from that promise. Visit once, decide for yourself. In the study you'll find my laptop. The password is the date of our first meeting followed by solace. The word you taught me to feel again. All my love, Graham." Tears blurred the ink. Even from the grave he was surprising me. Kessler cleared his throat. "There's a complication. Graham's brothers have filed to contest the will. Victor claims Graham was not of sound mind when he bought the estate. With its current value, this could escalate." Something hardened inside me. For months I had drifted like a ghost. But holding that key I felt a spark of resolve. "I'm going to Hawthorne Hollow." 2 days later, I drove through the Cascade Range, winding roads carrying me deeper into pine-shadowed silence. At last the gate appeared, carved wood and wrought iron spelling Hawthorne Hollow. My heart pounded as the key slid into the ancient lock. With a creak, the gate opened. It was no mere country cottage. A mansion of stone and timber rose beyond manicured lawns and towering oaks. Every line, every restored window whispered of Graham's touch. Inside I staggered. The great hall stretched high, sunlight catching on a vast stone fireplace. Yet it wasn't the grandeur that stole my breath. Every wall was alive with paintings. Moonflowers, cereus blossoms, night-blooming cacti. My passion, my obsession, reflected back at me from canvas after canvas. He had built me a gallery. On a table by the tall window sat a silver laptop. Upon its lid, a single white flower lay waiting. Then tires on gravel. My stomach dropped. Through the glass I saw a black SUV roll to a stop. 3 men stepped out, each bearing the Ellison features twisted in different ways. Victor, Daniel, Jonah. Graham's brothers. They strode to the porch like conquerors. A fist pounded against the door. "Mrs. Ellison," Victor's voice rang, sharp and entitled. "We know you're inside. Open up, we need to talk." My pulse hammered. Graham's warnings echoed in my ears. Instead of answering, I turned to the laptop, typing the password with trembling hands. August 14th, 89 solace. The screen blinked to life. A folder appeared labeled simply, Mara. Inside, hundreds of video files, each dated. I clicked the first. And there he was. Not gaunt and fading but alive, eyes bright, smile crooked. Hello my love. If you're watching this, it means I'm gone. And you came here despite all my warnings. I should have known. I've recorded a message for every day of your first year without me. To explain, to guide, to keep you company. And to tell you why I bought back the house I swore never to enter again. Outside the pounding ceased. Through the window I glimpsed his brothers muttering, waving papers. But I barely heard. Graham leaned closer to the camera, eyes steady. 3 years ago I was diagnosed with a cerebral aneurysm. 2 to 5 years, they said. I chose not to tell you or Sophie. I wanted to live, not die in advance. I know you're angry. I hid too much. But I promise, every secret had a reason. Hawthorne Hollow is more than land. It is the truth and the fight you'll have to face now. I pressed a hand to my mouth. Anger, grief, love collided inside me. And for the first time since he left, I realized. The story of my husband was only beginning. I don't remember breathing as the first video ended. Graham's face froze on the screen, eyes steady, the faintest smile still hovering on his lips. It was like he was alive again, speaking to me across the gulf of death. Outside, the SUV door slammed. Victor's voice carried through the heavy oak. Mrs. Ellison, this isn't a game. We have documents, signed orders. If you don't cooperate, we'll come back with the county. I muted the sound of his pounding fists by raising the laptop's volume. My hand shook as I clicked the next file. Graham appeared again, this time in the study I now recognized. The very room where I Saturday. If you're watching this second message, it means you ignored my brothers. Good. You'll need to. They won't stop. They never did. His tone hardened, the easy warmth of the first video giving way to something sharper. When I bought Hawthorne Hollow, I did it in secret. Not because of shame, but because I knew my brothers. Victor, Daniel, Jonah. They'd devour it the moment they knew its worth. I bought the estate legally from our father before he died. The old man was drowning in debts, desperate. I gave him a way out. My brothers never forgave me for that. They still believe the house is theirs by blood. But paper doesn't lie. The deed is in your name now. I froze. In my name. Not ours. My. You'll find a blue folder in the desk drawer, he continued, voice calm, deliberate. Inside are the notarized documents, the proof you'll need when they come knocking. They will. They always do. I opened the drawer. The folder was there, exactly as he said. Bank transfers, signatures, notarized stamps. My lifeline. Outside, the knocking ceased. Through the side window I saw the brothers huddled, heads bent over papers. One of them, Daniel, held his phone to his ear, pacing like a caged wolf. Then came a new sound. Tires on gravel, heavier this time. A sheriff's cruiser. My heart skipped. The deputy stepped out, young and earnest, adjusting his hat before climbing the porch. Victor handed him a packet of papers with the flair of a man convinced of his own power. The deputy knocked. Not as harshly as Victor, but firm. Mrs. Ellison, I'm Deputy Carter. Could you please open the door? I hesitated, clutching the blue folder. Graham's voice whispered from the past. Trust the documents, Mara. Trust what I left you. I opened the door just a fraction. The three brothers loomed behind the deputy, their gazes like knives. Ma'am, the deputy said politely, they claim you're withholding access to a property that may not legally belong to you. I need to see proof of ownership. My fingers tightened on the folder. Slowly I passed it through the gap. My husband anticipated this exact stunt, I said, keeping my voice steady. The documents are all in order. Please read them carefully before allowing anyone inside. The deputy stepped back, flipping through the papers. Silence hung heavy except for the rustle of legal pages. Then he nodded. Looks legitimate. Deed, notarization, bank records. Gentlemen, unless you have something stronger, this isn't a matter for me. This is civil court. Victor's face reddened, fury simmering beneath his controlled smile. She's confused. She doesn't understand what she's holding. Actually, I cut in, my voice firmer than I felt. I understand perfectly. This house belongs to me. Not to you. The deputy handed the folder back with a respectful nod. Have a good evening, ma'am. The SUV's doors slammed as the brothers retreated, their voices muffled but sharp with frustration. I locked the door, pressed my back against it, and exhaled a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. The laptop screen glowed in the dimming light. Graham's next video waited, thumbnail frozen on his familiar crooked smile. My hands trembled as I clicked it. If they've already tried to bring in the law, you stood your ground. I knew you would. But there's more you need to know, Mara. More than I ever told you in life. In the next message, I'll explain what this property truly means, and why it's worth more than even Pinnacle Lodges realizes. I sat in the silence of the great hall, the sound of my own heartbeat loud in my ears. Outside, the night gathered. The battle had only just begun. The house felt different after the sheriff left, like it had inhaled deeply and was waiting to see what I would do next. The silence wasn't comforting, it was charged, almost alive. Outside, the SUV's tail lights vanished into the trees, but I knew they would be back. Men like Victor never left quietly. The laptop's glow pulled me back. Graham's face flickered onto the screen once more. His voice was steady, almost businesslike. If you've reached this message, Mara, then they've already tested you. And you pushed back. Good. You'll need that strength. Hawthorne Hollow isn't just a family relic. It sits on ground the developers can't afford to lose. Pinnacle Lodges has a secret they're desperate to keep until every acre is in their hands. This estate is the last piece of a puzzle they can't complete without you. I felt my pulse quicken. The words tasted like prophecy. Graham leaned closer, his expression darkening. But there's more. You mustn't rely only on what's visible. In this house, what matters most is hidden. Behind walls. Beneath floors. I left you the means to fight, but you'll have to find it. Don't ignore the details. Nothing here is by accident. My eyes darted around the study, suddenly suspicious of every shelf and panel. Was there something hidden waiting for me? A sudden vibration jolted me back to reality. My phone lit up. Sophie. Mom, what is going on? Her text read. Uncle Victor called. He says Dad wasn't thinking clearly when he bought the property. He said you're overwhelmed and need guidance. I don't understand. Why didn't you tell me about Hawthorne Hollow? My chest tightened. They had reached her. Exactly as Graham predicted. I typed quickly, don't trust them. Please. I'll explain everything tonight. Her reply was almost instant. Mom, their family do. They said they can make this easier for both of us. Millions of dollars. Do you know what that means for me? For my future? I closed my eyes, gripping the phone until my knuckles whitened. Money. Of course. They had dangled wealth like bait, and my daughter, still grieving, still raw, was circling it like a fish. Before I could answer, a knock startled me. Not at the front door this time. Softer, from the side of the house. I stiffened, but then a voice called, Mrs. Ellison? It's Rosa Alvarez. Mr. Graham hired me to tend the conservatory. I hesitated, then opened the side door. A middle-aged woman with soil-stained gloves and kind eyes stood there, holding a watering can. He told me you'd come, she said gently, and that you might need help. I stepped aside, letting her enter the glowing glass conservatory that stretched behind the house. Rows of night-blooming cereus and rare orchids filled the space, each thriving under meticulous care. The air was sweet and damp, and for the first time that day I breathed without pain. Rosa glanced at me, lowering her voice. Mr. Graham trusted you, but he also worried about his brothers. He said if they ever showed up, I was to tell you this. Look where the light doesn't reach. I frowned. What does that mean? She shrugged, adjusting a nozzle in the irrigation system. He never explained. Only that you'd understand when the time was right. My phone buzzed again. Sophie, this time with a new message. I'm driving up tomorrow. Uncle Victor says we should all talk together. I stared at the text, my reflection trembling in the glass panes of the conservatory. Graham's warnings echoed like ghosts. They'll go through her. She is their easiest path to you. Rosa touched my arm, her eyes grave. Mrs. Ellison, whatever your husband built here, he built it to last. And he built it for you. Don't let them twist it into something else. That night, long after Rosa left, I roamed the house with a flashlight. Shadows stretched across the walls, every corner suddenly suspect. My hand trailed along the paneling in the east corridor until faintly I felt it, a hollow vibration where solid oak should have been. Hidden. Just as Graham said. I pressed my ear against the wall. And there it was, the The faintest hum, mechanical, deliberate. Something alive, waiting to be uncovered. The hum behind the wall haunted me through the night. Sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes I saw Graham's face on that glowing screen, telling me to look where the light didn't reach. By dawn I was back in the east corridor, fingers tracing the hollow panel until I found the seam. It took a sharp push with the heel of my hand before the wood gave way, swinging inward with a groan. A rush of cool air met my face, tinged with the scent of old paper and stone. My flashlight cut through the dark, revealing narrow steps leading downward. My heart pounded. Graham had built something here. For me. For this moment. The staircase ended in a heavy steel door, modern and out of place against the age of the house. My hand trembled as I tried the handle. Unlocked. The room beyond made my breath catch. Maps lined the walls. Topographical, geological surveys of Lake Arrowhead. Red markings carved across them, circles and notes scrawled in Graham's precise hand. On a central table lay folders thick with correspondence, bank slips, contracts. A projector sat ready and beside it, a monitor already glowing faint blue. And then I saw it, a binder stamped with the Pinnacle Lodge's logo. I pulled it open. Inside were drafts of plans never meant for the public. Phase 2 development. Luxury villas, a private golf course, artificial lakes. All of it carved directly into the protected woodland that surrounded Hawthorne Hollow. They weren't just building a resort. They were gutting the land. My stomach twisted as I flipped through the pages. Environmental assessments labeled "Do Not Circulate." Charts of projected profit margins against environmental fines. A cold calculation of destruction weighed against revenue. On the monitor, another of Graham's videos blinked to life, triggered by my presence. His eyes were serious, his tone measured. If you found this room, Mara, you understand now. Pinnacle doesn't just want our land, they need it. Without Hawthorne Hollow, their phase 2 collapses. And Victor knows this. He'll sell to them gladly for a slice of the profit no matter the cost. That's why you must hold your ground. This estate is leverage. With it you can protect the valley and yourself. His voice lowered. I left files here, proof of their misconduct, of their backroom deals. If they push too hard you'll have everything you need to bury them publicly. But be careful. Once they realize what you hold, they'll stop asking politely. I clutched the binder to my chest, fear and resolve warring in me. A sudden vibration startled me. My phone again. Sophie. Mom, I'm an hour away. Uncle Victor says we'll settle this once and for all. Please don't make this harder than it has to be. I sank into the chair at the war room center, the maps and documents spreading around me like weapons. He was coming. And she was walking straight into their hands. Upstairs, tires crunched on gravel again. More than one vehicle this time. I switched off the flashlight and killed the monitor, plunging the room into darkness. Voices echoed faintly through the house above. Victor's sharp bark, Daniel's smoother persuasion, Jonah's quiet murmur. And then Sophie's voice. My daughter. Mom? Are you here? The words pierced me deeper than any threat. I pressed my back against the cold stone wall, clutching Graham's evidence. The war had begun and the battlefield was no longer just this house. It was my family. The sound of Sophie's voice turned my legs weak. For a heartbeat I wanted to rush upstairs, hold her and let everything else collapse. But the binders and maps spread across the table reminded me, if I faltered now I'd lose not just the house but her too. I climbed the narrow stairs slowly, emerging into the study. My daughter stood in the doorway, her hair loose from the drive, eyes darting nervously between me and the 3 men flanking her. Victor was the first to speak. His voice carried that polished edge I had always despised. Mara, thank you for finally opening the door. This charade has gone on long enough. Sophie deserves to know the truth. Daniel, the lawyer, stepped forward, a folder in hand. Legally, this estate never should have been Graham's. He manipulated our father in his final days, exploited his confusion. The purchase was invalid. This property is shared family inheritance. Sophie turned to me, her expression torn. Mom, is that true? They said Dad pressured Grandpa when he was dying. That he wasn't thinking clearly. My throat tightened. How easily they twisted the past. No, Sophie. Your grandfather was bankrupt. He sold the house willingly. Graham didn't steal anything. He saved this estate from being lost entirely. And he did it for us. Victor scoffed. She's lying, Sophie. Think about it. Why would your father hide all this from you? From her? Unless he had something to be ashamed of. The words landed like poison darts. I saw my daughter's shoulders slump, doubt clouding her eyes. I crossed the room, placing the blue folder, the notarized deed and bank transfers, into her trembling hands. Look, these are originals. Stamped, signed, legal. Your father anticipated this exact lie. That's why he documented everything. She leafed through the pages, biting her lip. Victor leaned closer, his voice soft, oily. Sweetheart, papers can be forged. Don't you want stability? Security? We're offering millions. You and your mother could live comfortably forever. Isn't that what your father would have wanted? My heart pounded. They were using her dreams, her fears as weapons. Before you believe them, I whispered, reaching for the laptop on the desk, listen to your father. The screen lit, casting Graham's face into the room. His eyes locked on Sophie as though he knew she'd be watching. My darling girl, if you're here, it means my brothers reached you. I know them. I grew up under their shadow. They'll promise you money, security, family. Don't fall for it. This estate is not theirs. It never was. I bought it legally long before your grandfather passed. He needed the money and I gave it. Don't let them shame you for a truth they can't bear. Sophie's breath caught, her fingers clutching the desk. Her eyes shimmered as she whispered, Dad. Victor's face darkened, the charm slipping. Enough theatrics. A dead man's recordings don't hold up in court. Sophie, if you side with your mother, you'll be dragging yourself into years of legal battles. Is that what you want? But Sophie's gaze stayed on the glowing screen, not on him. One more thing, Sophie, Graham's recorded voice continued. This house is more than walls and land. It's the only piece of me I could leave you. Protect it and you'll protect your future, not theirs. Silence filled the study, broken only by Sophie's trembling breath. She looked from the laptop to me, then to her uncles. I don't know who to believe, she whispered, tears streaking her face. I placed a hand gently on hers. Then believe what you see. Not promises, not threats. Look at the evidence your father left you. He trusted you with the truth, Sophie. Trust him back. Victor's jaw clenched, the mask of patience cracking. We'll settle this in court. But don't think for a second you can win. The brothers stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frames. Their SUV's engines roared to life, fading down the road. Sophie collapsed into a chair, burying her face in her hands. Mom, I almost believed them. I wrapped my arms around her, holding her close. They knew exactly how to get to you. But you're stronger than that. And we're not alone. Your father left us everything we need. For the first time since Graham's death, I saw a flicker of steel in my daughter's eyes as she looked up at me. Then let's fight, Mom. I squeezed her hand, the war room below calling us back with its arsenal of evidence. The battle wasn't over. It had only just begun. The days that followed blurred into a haze of preparation. Sophie and I spread Graham's files across the study like generals poring over a battle map. Contracts, letters, environmental assessments, all of it damning, all of it waiting to be used. It was Sophie who said it first. We can't just defend Mom. We need to attack. Use what Dad left us. I saw Graham's fire in her eyes then, and I knew she was right. We didn't wait long. A letter arrived, heavy with the pomp of legal stationery. The Sterling brothers had filed an injunction, demanding the property be frozen pending a disputed inheritance claim. But attached was a curious addendum. Pinnacle Lodges requested mediation. They wanted to talk. 2 days later, the dining hall of Hawthorne Hollow became the battlefield. The long oak table was polished to a mirror shine. On one end, Victor, Daniel, and Jonah sat in rigid formation, their lawyer beside them, smirking like a man who thought the outcome already sealed. On the other, Sophie and I, with Mr. Kessler, Graham's trusted attorney. And then he entered. Alexander Alder, CEO of Pinnacle Lodges. Tall, silver-haired, his presence filled the room with an almost corporate reverence. He wasn't here to argue morality. He was here to close a deal. Mrs. Ellison, he said smoothly, extending his hand, my condolences for your loss. Let's be efficient. We want Hawthorne Hollow. You want security. Surely we can find a number that satisfies everyone. Victor leaned forward, seizing the moment. Exactly. We're prepared to entertain Pinnacle's offer on behalf of the Sterling estate. My brothers and I cut him off, sliding a folder across the table. Except you don't own the Sterling estate. I do. Alder's brow furrowed as he opened the folder. Inside, notarized deeds, stamped transfers, every signature perfectly preserved. Daniel gave a thin smile. Paper can be contested. Courts have overturned worse. Sophie's voice rang out, clear and sharp. Not when there's video testimony. My father recorded everything, his diagnosis, his purchase, his intent. You can contest ink, but not a man's voice from the grave. I pressed a button on the laptop. Graham's face filled the screen, projected against the wall. This house was purchased legally. I leave it solely to my wife, Mara Ellison. My brothers have no claim. Pinnacle, if you're watching, know this. You'll never build your phase 2 without me. The land is hers and hers alone. The room went silent. Victor's fists clenched, knuckles white. Alder's calm mask flickered. Phase 2. The words hung heavy. I slid another folder across. Your secret plans. The golf course. The artificial lakes. The falsified environmental reports. My husband found everything. Do you really want this in front of the press? Alder's jaw tightened. For the first time he looked unsettled. Victor slammed a fist on the table. This is blackmail. No, I replied softly. It's negotiation. The difference is choice. Kessler leaned forward, voice steady. Here are Mrs. Ellison's terms. Hawthorne Hollow remains untouched. The conservatory and art studio are protected under environmental easements. Access roads are maintained by Pinnacle. And any future development must pass through her approval. In exchange, she will not release the evidence of Phase 2's misconduct. Alder stared at me, weighing profit against exposure. Finally, he exhaled slowly. We'll need adjustments. But I believe an agreement can be reached. Victor shot up from his chair, face red with fury. You can't be serious. He's bluffing. This is our land. But Alder ignored him. His gaze stayed locked on me. You drive a hard bargain, Mrs. Ellison. Perhaps harder than your husband ever did. I'll have my lawyers draft the framework. Victor's protest echoed as Alder rose, signaling the meeting's end. The brothers trailed after him, their defeat bitter, their glares promising this wasn't over. Sophie reached for my hand under the table, her grip tight, trembling. Mom, we actually did it. Not yet, I thought. A deal on paper meant nothing until ink dried. But for the first time the tide had turned. The wolves had tasted their own blood. The storm broke 2 weeks later in a courthouse lined with oak panels and the smell of old dust. Papers shuffled, lawyers muttered, and the Sterling brothers sat stiff in their suits, eyes blazing with resentment. But their confidence had thinned. The judge read the documents carefully, pausing often, brow furrowed. Finally he looked up. Ownership of the property known as Hawthorne Hollow is validly transferred to Mrs. Mara Ellison, as per the notarized deeds and testimony. The claims of Mr. Victor Sterling and his brothers are dismissed. Victor half rose, his lawyer tugging him back down. Jonah muttered a curse. Daniel rubbed his temple as though calculating what remained of their empire. For the first time I saw them not as wolves but as men stripped of prey. Sophie sat beside me, her hand wrapped around mine, her eyes steady. She hadn't let go since the gavel fell. Pinnacle Lodges kept their word. A new agreement was drafted, one that preserved the conservatory, the art studio, and the untouched woods Graham had cherished. Alder signed it with cool efficiency, his silver pen scratching across the page. Unusual terms, he said quietly, almost with respect. But I've come to admire unusual women. I didn't answer. I had no need for his approval. The victory was mine, ours, and Graham's. When the dust finally settled, Sophie and I returned to Hawthorne Hollow. The mansion no longer felt like a stranger's secret. It felt like home. The first night back I opened the laptop once more. One file waited, untouched, unlabeled. With trembling fingers, I pressed play. Graham appeared in the studio, the empty walls echoing behind him. His smile was softer this time, weary but luminous. My love, if you're seeing this, then you've made it through. The battles are behind you now. I built Hawthorne Hollow as a gift, but it was never about the stone or the wood. It was about giving you the space to become yourself again. To paint. To dream. To live without fear. That's the real inheritance. He leaned closer, voice dropping. Promise me one thing, Mara. Don't let grief be the only color on your canvas. Paint with joy. Paint with defiance. Paint with the life we built together. And when Sophie is ready, show her that strength lives on through her too. Until someday. The screen went black. I sat there for a long time, tears running silently. Then I stood, opened the covered canvas Graham had left, and finally lifted a brush. The bristles dragged across the white in a bold stroke of blue, the same shade as the rare orchid blooming in the conservatory. Sophie entered quietly, watching me work. "It's beautiful, Mom." I smiled through the tears. "It's just the beginning." Outside, the valley lay in quiet dusk, untouched, protected. The brothers were gone, the wolves defeated. The house that had once been a secret was now a sanctuary. And for the first time since Graham's death, I felt not just loss but possibility. Hawthorne Hollow was no longer his promise. It was my legacy.